Hello and welcome back to the Reddit League show. This week, in week 2, I am joined by a veteran at this point and a regular on these shows as well. Mr. Blue, how are you doing?
I'm doing very fine, thank you. Thank you for having me again.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. Let's not make any of you wait any longer and let's start going into Bhutan and the player scores in Reddit League next. And yeah, they had definitely not as difficult of a seed as in Finland, more so in line with the difficulty of all the other seeds in Bhutan. But again, we saw an incredible performance from G Papa, who for the second time in a row had the top score in Reddit League next with 24,400 points roughly. And other than that, scores pretty split up. Some higher scores, some pretty low scores. Anything there standing out to you?
Well, what I can see here is that it's indeed the same person winning twice in a row, which is interesting to see. Because to be honest, I didn't know him from before this tournament. And what we can see is also that the top 4 or 5 is more or less separated from the rest already, which is maybe a bit early to say, but yeah, it seems like we have a small group of people that are going to fight for the positions, and that the rest might be a little bit behind that. Like the guy called OXGG, I saw him in a video with Jake Lyons, so maybe we can expect a bit more from him because he did quite well in that video, I think. And we also know Ankamako, of course, from Battle League, so maybe he can step up a bit as well. But other than that, I think that the current top 5 would probably be the ones to look out for.
Yeah, for sure. OxGG had like a very, very bad week 1, but he's shown like a big improvement in Bhutan in week 2. So I don't know what exactly happened to him in Finland. As we said last week, the seed was really difficult. So maybe if you just go the wrong way the whole time and then get frustrated with it and just, you shouldn't in Reddit League next because every point can count at the end. But it's understandable for, someone's first week maybe that they're just play a couple rounds, nothing going their way, and they just click through the rest. But yeah, pretty good score for him in Bhutan. So maybe trying to climb the ranks up a bit. And yeah, as you said, kind of top 5 maybe is where you see the bigger gaps. And then everything from 6th downwards is pretty close together. You can see there as well, Wavy played. Unfortunately, didn't play in week 2. Don't know why. You can still continue to play, of course, in Reddit League next. I'm not sure if I've ever mentioned the rules for that specifically on video, but basically for next, the rule is that you can still continue playing even if you miss 3, if you miss 4 weeks, etc. But you're only eligible to secure a place for Division 5 next season if you miss no more than 1 game, basically. So same kind of yellow-red card rules, but I'm not going to stop you from competing if you miss a couple weeks more than, in the regular division, because you're not competing against one person in particular in every given week. So there's no real influence on the rest of the standings by that. But yeah, let's move on to Division 5B. And yeah, we've seen some interesting results there. Lajesh with 7,000 points, pretty catastrophic for him. Unfortunate there. Obviously, against Mr. Swiss Snow, 22,900 points, would have had a rough time anyway. But I think he was probably kind of a similar situation to Ox maybe in Finland, where he just kind of gave up after 2 or 3 rounds. Other than that, pretty high profile game actually in Penguin against Danny Blondes. 2 great scores there. I think it's even the first against second of the seed in Division 5B. Penguin with 1 point more than Mr. Swiss Snow. But yeah, Danny Blondes keeps it going. Pretty good start to this season again, as is usually the case with him. Any of the others stand out to you?
So my Penguin actually got a bonus point for that one as well, right? So that's good for him. I would say that the win of Soundbite, he's a regular in the competition, but Settling, did really well last season, so I was expecting a bit more from him. I would call that sort of a surprise, but maybe Settling felt the pressure a bit from you guys hyping him up last week. So maybe that is what happens to him here. Other than that, I would say that maybe the win of Palena against Trebliha would also be a surprise.
Yeah.
and all the other ones, I would more or less say that either it will be was expected or um, yeah, like the game against between Corgi Morgi and Lolet, very very close game there. Um, really don't, I would not expect I would not know which one would normally be the better one of the two. So yeah, it's good to see that they were pretty even up there.
Yeah, in general, still kind of similar to last week. Newcomers having a bit of a rough time there, with the exception of Mr. Swiss Snow, of course. But all of the others kind of in that 13,000 to 16, 17,000 range with their points, lacking behind some of the more experienced players there. But yeah, Bhutan is a difficult country. We'll see if they can improve over the course of the season. Um, and looking at the table, even though he hasn't had the best results potentially in terms of the total score, Palena's still right in there in fourth place. Slight mistake in the graphic there, should be on 6 points, with 2 wins so far. So yeah, not bad out of the newcomers, alongside Mr. Swiss Snow right there in third place. Do you think that's kind of how you imagined the table to be looking like at this stage?
I would say that the top three probably. I mean, like you said, Mr. Swiss now did really well in
Yeah.
preseason, right? So that is really someone that you then expect also to be a bit up there. And yeah, Danny Blonson or no, I would indeed more or less expect to be there. Um, yeah, and for the rest, I think there is really not much to say yet about it. It's really early season still, and yeah, people can go up and down from there. Uh, so as I said, like some familiar names, some unfamiliar names, and yeah, it's difficult to predict that how that's gonna go from here.
Yeah, interesting fun fact about that actually, because Anonono started out last season as well, very well with 9 points in his first 3 games, but then ended up with only 5 more in the preceding 6 and ended up
Yeah.
losing the relegation playoffs, which is why he had to go through preseason again. But he'll hope to not repeat that and kind of stick with performing well as he has done so far. Uh, yeah, then let's see who they're playing next week. And we've got our first derby of the week there in Cephalin versus Penguin. I think it is a derby that has been seen before. They were both in Division 5A last season. And we also got Danny Blons against Mr. Swiss Snow. That could be a very interesting match as well.
Yeah, that must be the top clash for this week in this division. I also think that the match between Lagage and Kukers will be an important one because they're currently quite low in the rankings, and but I think that they're quite known players as well, so they should definitely be doing something if they still want to do something within this season. So they got to go for it. And yeah, as for the Polish derby, I think that yeah, Penguin might take this one.
Yeah, he might. I mean, with this kind of map, it's a bit of an interesting one because how this usually plays out on a world map, and especially one that's relatively urban, is that in a usual seed you'll probably have at least 3 to 4 relatively easy rounds. Especially down here with 4 minutes 20, you probably shouldn't be too far away on most of these rounds. So it can really be decided by just, one maybe going in an unfortunate direction, maybe just having a little bit of bad luck. So it kind of slightly, I wouldn't call it less skill dependent because obviously that, still takes a little bit of skill, but it's maybe a map that lends itself better to an upset than, kind of a really difficult map would. Also, fun fact again, for the last season's matchup between Penguin and Zethlin, that was won by Penguin on Idaho back then in a relatively clear fashion. So we'll see if he can repeat that. But I also think we've got quite a lot of newcomer matchups again, and I think Corgi Morgi against Palena could also be an interesting one, especially for Palena, who, as we said before, has won both of their first games this season, and yeah, kind of the matches against those players around probably like a similar skill level are the matchups that they kind of need to win if they want to fight for promotion, or if otherwise they just want to be in a position that's clear of any relegation at least. So that could be a very interesting one as well. And as you said, yeah, Kukas against Lajej, of course, both with a not the greatest start. Kind of need to pick up points sooner rather than later. And yeah, let's look at Division 5A, which saw kind of a pretty wide range of scores here as well. We've got 24,700 points for Jack, and on the other side, a few 13Ks with Paranoid Android, Sorcel, and Keith. None of the matches particularly close, actually. Picatost against Mr. Fish with like 1,100 points is the closest out of all of those.
Indeed, yeah, absolutely. I would say that a lot of the games also went the way they were expected to go. I'm a little bit surprised by Paranoid Android's result here. I mean, like it's Bhutan, so I mean, like it's difficult to say how that what is that gonna say about the rest of his season, of course. But yeah, he's been around for a while as well, and only 13K here. So that's, I would say, an upset against Gordy. Well, I mean, in Gordy's favor in this case. Other than that, maybe Picatost against Mr. Fish might have been a little bit of a surprise as well, even though, yeah, as you said, Mr. Fish has been here before, did not really do well, but then after that, like on his return, he started off really well. So maybe we can expect a bit more from him. Picatost himself, I have not really seen play that much. But I think he is a decent player as well. So yeah, let's see what he can do for the rest of the season. The game between Clemo and Jack has been a really nice one there.
Yeah, definitely great performance from both of them. Very unfortunate for Clemu there, who has his second loss with again a pretty good performance. He had a pretty good game in week 1, 2, and just lost out in that one. And I think no, never mind. He got a bonus point in that week too. So 2 bonus points, but yeah, definitely some unfortunate matchups for him there. And yeah, we played, I think, at least once against Picatost in La Liga Intercommun, where he's also taking part.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, kind of from what I've gathered so far, he seems to be playing all of these games very, very early, like within a couple of hours of me publishing the links. So I don't know if that just means he doesn't practice for them, or if he's just fully ready for them whenever they come out. But that might be a factor in why his performances aren't quite up there with some of the other players in that division. But yeah, as you said, still coming out with the win there against Mr. Fish. And also a great performance from Biquette, who kind of, I think, is, alongside Jack, my favorite for promotion this season out of Division 5, and certainly doing a great job so far so far until this point, as we can see while looking at the table. Again, small mistake there. Jack is actually on 6 points with his 2 wins, of course, and Clemu is missing a point there as well. He is on 2 points. But yeah, this table kind of just illustrates again the kind of bad luck that Clemu has been having with 47,000 points in total score, the 3rd highest. Unfortunately, only enough for position 8 at the moment. But maybe with some of the more difficult matchups out of the way, I think he's also a very strong player. So maybe he can come back to, the upper half of the table, at least in the coming weeks. Yeah, how about this division? Anything, what's your promotion favorites for this one?
Yeah, you pretty much stole it away from me there. So Big Cat is definitely also someone that I was gonna point out there, and then Jackass as well, as we already know him for quite some time. Yeah, and Clemo, I think that looking at his total score, he definitely has a chance to climb up there. And for the rest, yeah, Paranoid Android. I'm definitely expecting him to do a bit more than he has been showing so far.
Yeah, I'm also not quite sure what Zosoma did to this graphing in general, as, I mean, these players are good, but they're not 5,000 aces in 2 games good. And the score difference is also, it's right for some of the players. It's not right for others. So yeah, he was in a bit of a rush making these.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's right for most players. It's incorrect for Jack and Clemu and Paranoid Android, I think. But the score difference is not too big of a deal anyway.
But the total points, like sorry, not the total points, but the points that they have won, like the 6 points to 0, we can actually already see quite a gap here, which is interesting as well. after 2 weeks.
Yeah, true, true. Yeah, basically 5 players winning both their games, 5 players losing both their games. Yeah, for sure. That means there's a little bit of a gap in the middle there, and will be difficult for some of the players further down there to kind of make up those points. Although,
Absolutely.
um, kind of looking at the players at the top and looking at the players at the bottom, I think it's mostly who you would have expected anyway. With maybe as you said before, talking about the results, maybe would have expected a bit more out of Paranoid with his experience now. I think it's also like his third or fourth season already, probably his third. And yeah, with Jack and Biquette as you would have expected at the top. But yeah, season is still long. First time there's 12 players in Division 5, so 9 more weeks for them to make up for those unfortunate first 2 weeks in the case of some of the people further down.
Hmm.
And yeah, let's take a look at their games for next week. And we've got our top of the table clash there in Jack against Biquette.
Indeed. That's going to be a very interesting game. Yeah, difficult to say who's going to win that. As both have been proving that they can play different kind of maps, and on this map, I would not be surprised if it's gonna end up in a draw. To be honest, um, for both Jamir and Paranoid Android, I would say that this is going to be a must-win for them if they still want something from this season, because like they have been around for a while, and yeah, they definitely have not started off too well. And also a good game will be Picatost against Clemo, I would say.
Yeah, I agree on those. I think Picato's Clemo is a very interesting one to look at. I think, yeah, as you said, Damir, Paranoid Android, and I also think Hordy against Uploxeed could be two very close matchups that could be pretty crucial for all of those players for their further course of the season. And yeah, Jack Biquette, as you mentioned, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a draw there either. As always, depends a bit on the seed, but if it's not too much on the hard side, then yeah, I'm fully expecting both of those players to put up great scores. And maybe we even see some perfect draws this week. Maybe not necessarily in this division, but somewhere around those 5 divisions. I'm sure we'll see at least one or two of them.
We'll discuss about that a bit later, right?
Yes, we'll talk about that when we talk about the map later on as well. But yeah, maybe we'll see a couple of matchups as well that stand out over the course of those 4 or 5 divisions. So let's move on to the next one, to Division 4B and their results in Bhutan. And it seems like the Division 4 seed was probably the easiest looking at those results. You see a lot of scores very close to the 25Ks, a lot of scores very close together as well here. Luckily for those players, none of them up against each other, but basically Jake, Pashtetli, Solar Sensei, and Ollie all within 21 points there.
True, yeah, absolutely. Interesting seed. I can't remember the locations anymore, but indeed, I think if looking at the scores here, that this would be one of the easier seeds that we have had. Um, I would say that indeed, Solar Sensei winning, Pashtetli winning, Jake winning, Ollie winning. They would be all like more or less the way it was going to be expected. Maybe Ollie Sheldon could have been going either way. Um, and then like the match between Jean Harrison and Seppo. Yeah, maybe you would expect Seppo to win that one on paper, but we have seen Jean Harrison around as well, and he can definitely do some damage, and that's exactly what he did here.
Yeah, and as I kind of alluded to last week, like I know my guys. I knew Seppo wasn't winning anything here. It's just kind of not really a map where I expect him to do well. I might have not expected him to do this badly, but yeah, just not really the type of player who would do well in a week like that. And
Yeah,
yeah, interesting thing there about the Jake game. In general, pretty much an easy seed, with the exception potentially of round 5, which was sort of a bit in the mountains over Trongsa in the middle of Bhutan, and it took you quite a while to get down there, especially if you may have checked out the north as well for a little bit. And Jake in particular found out where he was with 8 seconds to go. So just in time, but any longer, any more wrong clicks, he had quite a few, but any more, and that match could have easily gone a different way. But it is kind of nice to see for Jake in that sense, because he's had a lot of those kind of games where he's had just unnecessary mistakes, or just got a little bit too nervous, got too much into his or in his head, and lost some unnecessary games last season.
Mm.
So definitely nice for him to see kind of things going his way for once this season, and he's gonna need it for the promotion fight. But yeah, good start for him. Also, yeah, great scores from a lot of other people's here for sure. And yeah, I think who did the bonus point here go to? I think it should have been Laban, yeah, who
Laban, yeah.
got the bonus point in 5th there. So let's see what that does to the table. And we've got Pastetli at the top, ahead of Jake and Ollie. Is that kind of what you were expecting this season, or is a little bit of a surprise?
Well, I wouldn't say that was going to be what I was expecting, because as we already discussed before, this is a very tight division with a lot of good players, and basically it's anyone's game. Um, but I have a good connection with both of them, so I'm very happy to see both of them on the top of the league so far. And hopefully for them, they will be able to keep that going. Um, Also, very good start so far for Ollie, of course. And yeah, Solar lots of points as well, like total points. So he's definitely in the game. And then other than that, pretty much everybody else is still in the mix there. Maybe the two people at the bottom, the Frenchies, they should be maybe a bit more careful and to see what they can do. But even McPiet there is also still okay point-wise. So I would say that definitely, yeah, it can still change a lot here as well.
Yeah, especially as you said, points wise, a lot of players still really close together there, from 47k for Solar Sensei all the way down to Mikpiet in 42k. It's not a big gap yet, not as big as we've seen in some of the Division 5s. We do see there kind of Seppo, Jean Harrison, and Dromi stand out a bit in sort of the mid to low 30Ks. So, kind of with total scores like that, it might just be one bad week, but, kind of in a situation where you want to pick up as many points as you can as early as possible, because if you don't, then you might quickly end up in a situation where you're down there and need some more points in the later weeks. And, you can always get some unlucky scheduling there. So yeah, they probably, Seppo and John Harrison, gonna be happy they already have 3 points behind them. And yeah, a bit of a rough situation for Dromi already with his 0 points at the moment. Let's see the matchups for next week, if some of them can change their fortunes. And yes, Seppo McPete, already an interesting matchup there. Kind of Seppo is ahead, but just coming off of a pretty bad week in Bhutan. But again, one location per city, probably more so along his skill sets, I would say.
Yeah, probably. I would say that indeed, in that match, he might probably be the favorite. Um, for me, the two that really stand out here are Jake against Ollie, and also Sheldon against Jean Harrison. I think those will be two very interesting matches to watch. And the other two, I was gonna expect at least Solar and Pastelli to win those games.
Yeah, I feel like I definitely agree with you. And Jake against Ollie, that's definitely, I mean, we, second against third in the table, two very strong players, even though Ollie is just coming off of promotion from Division 5. But yeah, showed some good skill in the first 2 weeks. Yeah, Jean Harrison just hasn't really had any great success so far. Kind of continuously, I mean, I say continuously, it's been 2 weeks, but both of his scores in those 2 weeks were around like 8th, 9th best score of the division. And he's going to have to step up a lot there if he wants to beat Sheldon. But that being said, again, it's a world map, which he might be more used to. So we'll really only see kind of his skill level on these kinds of maps after this week. Yeah, I also think Pastetli Laban could be an interesting game. They've both played lots of games, and, are well aware of how Reddit League goes. So I think kind of what I mentioned in Division 5, where on a map like this could really go either way. So yeah, definitely looking forward to that one too. All right, then let's take a look at the results in the other Division 4, in Division 4A, and similarly high scores here. Only one person below the 20k, and that is Lunacy, who had a bit of an extension, very busy at the moment, and also had to play on, I think it was throttled Wi-Fi, probably in his hotel room. So unfortunate there, because it was still relatively close considering that against a not too impressive score from Sepkirs there.
Yeah, I was going to highlight as a slight surprise, even though we also know Sepkirs and he is also quite a decent player. The biggest surprise for me here is Otomo, to be honest, because in his first week he did not really well, and I was like, what's going on? Is he losing his motivation, or what's going on with him? But now he comes back with a 24-4, so well done to him. And he's beating the leader from last week, so good job. Other than that, I would say, yeah, the matches went as they were supposed to go, with quite big separations between them. And then had Gemini with a bonus point here, which in the only game that was really close and high scoring as well.
Yeah, exactly. I was probably most surprised by Satomo as well, because his week 1 game wasn't just, not that great. It was very bad, below 10,000 points in Finland. Not a good showing. So to see him bounce back with over 24k in a country like Bhutan is very encouraging to see, and kind of gives him hope again to fight for at least his stay in Division 4 and his home, basically, at this point. He's been here for 3 seasons at least, probably 4 seasons actually, now that I think about it. Yeah, other than that, as you said, not any really big surprises. Xander and Karp getting their wins against Wakelock and Danny. Hexalt with a fantastic score again, kind of not only just in Division 4, but kind of looking at all of the other seeds that he usually plays as well from the other divisions. He's seemed to be doing really well this season so far, at least. I don't know if that's just, maps being kind of in his favor, some countries that he's good at, or if he's just, really putting in the effort. But
she said, like, the French people, they seem to like Bhutan a lot, and
yep.
you can see that in the results in most of the divisions. Not every French player, but
Not heading me. But yeah.
For instance, yeah, indeed, yeah. But overall, that is what we can see, indeed.
Yeah, so as we look at the table, and kind of continuing from what I just said, I think that actually puts Hexalt as one of my favorites for promotion in this division, that already kind of has a bit of a gap there after Hexalt and Xander. Obviously, just 3 points still, but a lot of back and forth in this division. Most of the division winning and losing in their first 2 weeks. So everything's, relatively close together in the middle, but those 3 points difference there, it could already kind of give you a little bit of, comfort and confidence going into the next weeks there.
Confidence, maybe, yes, and they probably would need that as well. But I am not convinced yet that what we see here at the top is going to be at the top at the end as well, because especially the Germans here, they are not to be underestimated. They can definitely come back, and yeah, the whole top 6, I would say they have the chance to do some damage here.
Yeah, for sure. Also, relatively nicely sorted by total score. Looking at it, just Yemini standing out a bit, with his total score being between Wakelock and Lunacy. But other than that, everything's perfectly sorted. So let's see if they can keep that going. Also, it stands out there a bit is Sepkir's 0 aces, which is a bit... I don't know if worrying is the right word, but it does stand out a bit. And looking at it from last season, it didn't stand out much there. He had 23 aces over the course of last season, which was pretty much in line with most other people around him. So maybe just really struggling with Bhutan and Finland, perhaps. But I feel like there's a lot of countries this week, as I've said in the
I think
show.
he might. I think I read somewhere that he was not practicing that much lately, and as I have also not been practicing myself a lot, or at least not been playing a lot competitive myself, I do also notice that the pinpointing thing is a bit of a struggle. So maybe that
That
could be the case for him as well. Yeah,
Yeah, that would make sense. But yeah, as I said in the preview show as well, it's a relatively difficult map pool for pinpointing this season for sure. With
as well. Yes,
as
absolutely.
we've had Finland, Bhutan, I think Argentina is also going to be super difficult. Virginia, I don't think is going to be very easy. And I forgot most of the other countries already, but yeah, not the easiest pool for that. So we'll see if that comes into play later on in the season. If there's a couple games here or there where he would wish that he could just pinpoint some of these locations. But yeah, it's not going to be an easy game for him next week either, as we look at those against Hexal, the current first place. Not an easy game for both Germans, actually, as Heyemine has to go up against Karp.
Yeah, that is actually going to be my favorite game for this round here, because both of them have been around. They've been showing that they can actually play a game, and I would say that's not going to be an easy game at all for Karp to beat him. Of course he can, and he has been proving that he can do so as well. So that's going to be very interesting to watch. And I also want to point out the match between Hedekmi and Xander. I think that's going to be a very interesting match. To be honest, pretty much all of the games here are going to be interesting to watch. I think all of them are, yeah, going to be a match where either of the two players can actually win.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you on the Hedekmi Xander match, as that was also the one that stood out to me as being very interesting in its outcome. Also, the British Derby there, Wakelock against Danny, could be a pretty important game for both of them too, because Danny, hasn't as a newcomer hasn't really had the best of starts, and we
Yeah.
know Wakelock is kind of a very hit or miss player. So we'll see how he does this week. But yeah, again, that could be one of the few opportunities that Danny has to pick up some points. And he's going to need to make use of all of them pretty much if he wants to stay in this division and not get relegated. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Tomo is gonna be in for a rough one against Lunacy, I think. Lunacy, I know he's playing a lot of these, a lot of world maps as well, just generally random maps that I think it's probably something he's very good at. And so Tomo, with being a bit rusty, might not come into effect that much on like a country map like Bhutan, where that is relatively difficult anyway. But on a very easy map, I think that's probably where you'll mostly see, just sort of mistakes purely based on not having played enough recently. So we'll see if that comes into effect here. But let's move on to our next division, Division 3, with their scores. And yeah, some interesting scores here. Freckles struggling a bit, Hugo struggling a bit, the veterans not having a great time here. Nakuro also losing his game against Diesel. But yeah, we see definitely some interesting results. A lot of them not necessarily going the way you might have expected them to go. What do you think?
Yeah, I was gonna say that still this next win would be the one that was going to be expected here. I would say the result of Antoine is really, really impressive. He has been impressing me so far this whole season. Well, 2 weeks, but so far he's doing really well. Yeah, indeed. Like, but to be honest, the other ones that you mentioned, not the way you might expect them to go. But on the other hand, it could go either way anyway, because closed, Paulinho and Nakiro, as well as Pastek, Haché, they have been showing that they can play some game as well. So it's not strange that they win those matches, but yeah, maybe you would normally expect them actually to go the other way around. So that's quite interesting to see that happened to all 4 of those matches. Um, that said, yeah, they did really, really well, and they won deservedly as well, to be honest.
Yeah, fantastic score from Diesel as well. Kind of a Bhutan specialist, which is part of the reason why I had him on last week. And yeah, just, didn't let me down. Got a 24,995, which I think, if I remember correctly, is the highest score of. No, actually, or is it? Wait. I think it is the highest score out of anyone on their own seed. I think there were some higher scores than that by people playing a different division seed. But on the one that actually counted, that is the outstanding performance there. And again, on a seed that wasn't super easy. As you can see, there are a few scores above the 24Ks. With Antoine, as you pointed out, great start from him in the whole season. And Paulinho there as well, who came back after a pretty good game in Finland as well, that he just, unfortunately lost, but got a bonus point as well there. So, had a good score at least in that too. Tante seems to be the one kind of struggling a bit here in Division 3 with, some less impressive scores, at least in this game against Steel the Snick. Let me just check. Oh, his game in Finland wasn't actually bad. Just,
The score is fine, yeah.
just slightly below kind of the bonus point range by a few hundred points range. So let's look at what that does to the table, where, that's a very close table, actually, especially in sort of the top 8 at least, until we get that gap down to the bottom 4.
Yeah. But looking at who are these people with 0 points, Nakiro, Freckles, and Flipster, I think all three of them can have the capability to turn this table around, to be honest. So that's going to be very interesting to see how that's going to develop further, because I think that all three of them still have a chance to at least finish top 5.
Yeah, I definitely think you can't write any of them off in terms of, they'll be just fighting against relegation and nothing else. But at the same time, probably losing those first 2 games does mean that they will have to, bring some outstanding performances if they do still want to have a chance of promotion, because there's so many good players in this division that, you can always kind of assume, okay, a few of the players above me will drop a couple points here or there, but, 5 or 6 or 7 of them dropping this many points is gonna be pretty unrealistic. They'll drop 3 or 4 points for sure, but that pretty much puts you down to, you're gonna have to be perfect for the rest of the season. And, if they are, then absolutely, they're gonna still have a chance up there, but, it seems pretty difficult there. And yeah, apart from that, I don't think there's anything too, that stands out too much. So let's look at their games for next week. And yeah, Geofogger played this week against Antoine Pilot, so last week against him. So this week against Tante, he's got both of the newcomers apart from himself out of the way. I think, that Antoine Pilot played Tante in week 1 as well. So all of those newcomer games between themselves are out of the way after this week.
Mm-hmm. I have 3 matches here that stand out to me the most. I was going to say Steel the Snake against Freckles is going to be a very interesting one. They're far apart from each other in the table, but that is exactly one of the situations where I can say, like, okay, well, this could be a turnaround situation, for instance. Then Paulinho against Hugo is going to be a very interesting game as well. Both been around for quite some time. Hugo is a player who can... Actually, both of them are a bit like inconsistent players, so they can both come up with very good scores, and then a week later they can completely miss out. So that's something that can happen here in this game as well. And Pastek against Diesel is going to be an interesting one as well for me. Yeah, I don't know, like Nakiro against Antoine is also a nice game, and maybe that can also be one of those matches where things start to turn around suddenly. And if Flipster is back from his holidays, then the same thing can happen there as well, to be honest.
Yeah, time for a catch-up starts now. We've also got a very derby-heavy week with Steel the Snake against Freckles, closed against Flipster, and Geofogger against Tante. Geofogger obviously representing Brittany there, but, still in France. So that's also... And Nakiro against Antoine Pilot, of course, as well. So basically 4 derbies this week, which is as many as we could have had. There's no other one possible.
And Geofogger against Tante is also sort of a derby, right?
Yeah, that's what I said. Those 4.
Sorry, I didn't hear.
Yeah. So very interesting factor there. That might be like the most derbies we've ever had in a single week in one division. I'm pretty sure it probably has to be if someone wants to go through all the weeks. by all means, go ahead. I'd like to know.
I would
But
be surprised if there's anything else. Yeah.
yeah, definitely an interesting factor there too. So let's look at Division 2. And I'm always back. No
Yeah.
red cards there.
Good
So
to see
that's
that.
nice. Yep. And again, pretty far spread out scores, especially, usually you expect those kind of big differences in the lower divisions, but it's relatively rare to get so many different scores in one of the higher divisions.
Mm. Yeah, and it's nice to see that actually one of the newcomers, Stock here, takes a bonus point, even though that he lost the game, of course, against the other newcomer. And you will see that actually the newcomers in this division are doing really well. What else? Yeah, maybe Max losing against Orboka would be a slight surprise here. And yeah, for the rest, I think the matches went more or less the way they were supposed to go. Maybe Guelo a little bit disappointed, but yeah, other than that, not much to tell, I think.
Yeah, I think not too many big surprises there, as you pointed out. Max against Orboka, maybe not exactly the way you would have expected it to go. Max has always struggled a bit with inconsistency here or there, which is kind of the main reason that he's still in Division 2. I feel like he's the kind of player where on his best maps, he's absolutely Division 1 quality, but he just has, relatively weak performances strewn in here or there that just stop him from being right up there. And yeah, other than that, yeah, especially as you kind of pointed it out, Stock and Samoti have had pretty great starts to the season. Didn't know either of them before. So, yeah, definitely strong from them. And yeah, let's look at the table. And that kind of shows, as we kind of predicted at the beginning, what was going to be a very, very difficult season for Guelo, right there at the bottom. Struggling in total score as well, almost 10,000 points behind the next person, if we exclude Amor from that for his yellow card in week 1. So he's probably going to have to focus just on some of the weeks where he might do a little bit better and really give it his all in those weeks, because he seems to be on average not quite at the level required for Division 2 at this point. But yeah, as you said, Samoti in second, Stock in fifth, both pretty great starts.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's interesting to see how they are going to develop further this whole season, to see if they can keep that up or that they, yeah, fall down at some point. Because as you said, also they have been just playing each other more or less in the first few weeks, so that might also be part of it. That said, I think the two Americans, they might be in for a tough season here indeed. Yeah, I mean, like they have been around and they can definitely play, and we have seen that. So they might just come back as well during the season. But the way it looks right now, yeah, they might have some difficulties to stay up, and because I'm also expecting Armand to climb up further than what he's doing right now. And yeah.
Yeah, Cameron as well, currently very busy, so we might see him come back on some of the maps that might require less practice, or just in future weeks when he's less occupied with other stuff, as he has shown to be a very good player over the course of the last couple of seasons. Looking at their games for next week kind of gives away a little fun fact there as well of how these matchups are scheduled, as you see in kind of a similar fashion to Division 3. Division 2 as well, the newcomers all facing off against each other immediately, with Stock against Aston this week, where they're currently scheduled essentially in a way that Division 2 and Division 3, well, essentially the 12-player divisions, all have the same kind of calendar based on just, there's 12 people, so each gets assigned a number, and then they get assigned to a fixed place basically in a schedule. So that kind of, if you know which player has which number, that kind of already tells you who they're going to play against when, which I don't know if that ever is going to be a problem, but might have to talk with that about that with carp at some point, whether we can randomize those a little bit more.
Yeah,
Um,
I did randomize that for my battle league, to be honest. But I mean, like in general, it doesn't really matter, to be honest. You just play your games and you
yeah,
face everybody once. So
yeah, true. Just it's kind of weird to me how it's the newcomers both times. So maybe he didn't like randomize which player would be assigned which number and just like took the three newcomers at the bottom and they just got, player 10, 11, and 12. Because that's just the way it stood out to me. It might not have happened that way. I'm going to have to look into it. But yeah, it might not be a big deal at all. It's just something I have noticed now that I actually, thought about it.
no, but that might be one of the reasons why they have been doing so well, Samoti and Stock so far, because they've played Astin already. Or actually, Stock has not played against Astin because he's going to play him
Yes.
next. So that's not entirely true what I just said, but I mean, like, you get my point.
Yeah.
And like looking at these matches, I would say that probably the most important match here will be Armand against Bootbat, French derby. Both really good players, and yeah, Armand. I'm as well expecting Armand to win this game, but yeah, we have seen Bootbat as well, and uh, he can definitely play as well. So I mean, that might just be a draw as well to be in between them. Um, And Weddock against Cameron will be also an interesting one to look out for, I think. And then Renata against Max as well, maybe.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Verdok is very, very good on these kinds of maps, so it's gonna be a pretty difficult time for Cameron here too
Sure.
to try and get any points out of that. But we'll see. He might at least perform better than in the first 2 weeks and maybe grab a bonus point or a draw, which would already be a success on a world map against Verdok, I think. And I also think Ordboka against WTF is a pretty interesting game, with Ordboka currently leading the table after 2 wins. But I'd say overall they're of a pretty similar, pretty similar quality, pretty similar level of player. So could definitely be an interesting game here too. And if Ordboka can win those games, those types of games, then that definitely makes him kind of like a surprise candidate for at least a promotion fight, which you probably wouldn't have thought he would necessarily be with how his last season went and with what we were thinking at the start of the season.
Yeah, I do agree with that.
All right, then let's get to our last division for this week, which is Division 1.
Uh-oh.
And you've not had the best of times so far, haven't you? Have you?
Well, yeah, you just told the story about Jake in the other division, right? And like more or less the same sort of thing happened to myself, but I also actually to Basement. Like we were both like more or less like ahead pretty much the whole game, and then there was like this one round, the last round, where we just didn't score enough points, and then we both lost the games. And um, most frustrating for myself is that because I looked at footage of other people, and then I just saw that like the same direction as where I went. I normally go quite slow, and you always point out to me like, "Oh yeah, you move so slow." I'm like, "Yeah, but we're now in Bhutan, so now I have to go faster." So I have to. So I went by really fast, and then I completely missed one of those marker stones, and I didn't see any during the whole round, and then I just had to plunk it somewhere, and yeah, that was the game.
Yeah. Just in
So
contrast to that, Basement didn't go fast enough because he actually went in the same direction that I did in that round, and I made it to signs with like 25, 30 seconds to go
right,
that he
yeah,
didn't make it to. So, it's always kind of a
it is. Yeah.
trying to balance it. You can't go too fast and just not see things, but at the same time, if you go too slow, you're potentially missing out on information that other people might gain. And yeah, in this case, another cost some players always more of a factor on some maps than others, in Bhutan especially, where information isn't really that abundant on, especially on some roads. But generally, as long as you're not in a city or town somewhere, you're gonna have marker stones. And the fact that I found those signs in the first place in that round 5 was surprising to me because I've never seen those before, really, in Bhutan.
Oh, I saw that you had like green signs right at the
Yeah,
end. Yeah, I saw that on your video. Yeah.
yeah. I've sometimes very rarely seen them on like some of the bigger highways, but Yeah, they were a real surprise to me. um, but yeah, also had another
Yeah.
interesting thing in there where I don't remember if it was round 2 or round 3, there was actually a sign towards something called Shasilaka, which is a town that isn't actually like on the map, but there is one PY
Yep.
with that name there. And on the marker stone right next to the start in round 5, that town was again mentioned. I didn't make the connection because it was also kind of blurry and hard to read from the only angle where you could actually read it. Um, and I don't think many others did either. I know Nimrith did
Yeah,
because
I
I've talked
noticed
to
it as
him.
well myself last, like after that, but
Yeah,
I mean, like I never saw that sign anyway, but
yeah.
I saw it on the videos as well from other people, so I was like, ah, okay,
I
would
don't,
be
I don't,
nice to know.
yeah, I don't actually remember now. I've talked to Nimrith. I don't remember if he said he noticed it afterwards or if he noticed it during the game. But yeah, he definitely did. I noticed it afterwards as well. So that could have made it very easy in that round 5. But
True, yeah, absolutely.
it's difficult to pay attention to what you're doing and remember things. But yeah, in general, some very close results there for sure. Round 1 was also a pretty difficult one where I know a lot of players didn't find anything at all. I found mentions of the province or district of Saopang, but kind of a 50-50 on which road, and I chose the wrong one, and a lot of other people did the same. And
Yeah,
that's kind of why I think you see a lot of very close scores there. Very similar types of, how the game went for a lot of players there. Yeah, so overall, I think you can't really say, oh, that was a massive upset or something like that, because all the scores, all the matches are pretty close. So let's take a quick look at the table there and see how those close matchups made or changed the shape of the table. And we've got kind of two people there running away with it a bit at the top. Barry with a very good start to the season, a perfect score in Finland, and then a good win here in Bhutan on 7 points as a newcomer. Well, a newcomer to Division 1, obviously promoted from Division 2 from last season. Mason as well as a newcomer in 4th place, though obviously, from 3rd to 9th, essentially just 1 point between everyone, so still everything up to play for.
yeah, absolutely, and I'm very happy to be seeing that despite losing twice, I'm the only player who actually gained bonus points. So I'm not far behind yet. So still everything to play for myself. But like the whole division is yet to be played for. I mean, like yeah, Barry and Plucky they started off really strong. But that doesn't say anything yet for what is going to happen for the rest of the season. So yeah, I don't know. Like this whole division is was open from the beginning and is open still, and will probably be open until the end. And I just hope that Total Radio might actually, yeah, uh, put himself into the mix as well. And he should be, but that would be nice to see. That it's going to be a very close season all along.
Yeah, and looking at the total scores as well shows just how close this division is, as we've seen in a lot of the other divisions with, there's at least 1 or 2 players which are lacking behind a bit. And here, from 42k to 47k, everything's very, very close together still. So definitely going to be some very interesting weeks to come. And starting with that, next week, you know,
What are you playing?
you said that, about things not going quite your way. That can continue for a week, okay? You can start picking up points after that, right?
We gotta see about that. I mean, like we're gonna play on my map apparently, so
Yes.
like you
And
seem to be not very happy with that, even though that I don't know 90% of the locations or maybe 99% of the locations of that map. But yeah, okay, sure.
that part's mostly joking. Obviously, you're not going to have a big advantage about, it being your map with 80,000 locations, but yeah, another fun fact there. Do you know when the last time was that I won on a world map in Reddit League?
Maybe never. No, I don't know.
That'd be too extreme. The last time was in week 4 of season 3 against Radox.
Wow. Okay.
It's been
That's
6
yeah.
world maps without a win en suite, 2 draws in there, which is never too bad because they were like 24k, 24.9k draws as well. So but not 1 in 3 seasons. So, well, I'm hoping for a miracle. But yeah, definitely going to be a fun match. Derby here as well in Pluk against Nimrith, which could be pretty interesting. Two players I definitely think are capable of making it to the playoffs there. And yeah, two newcomers as well. Mason against Toto Radio. Also going to be pretty interesting. Maybe the first chance for Toto Radio to pick up some points this week.
Yeah, I guess pretty much like that indeed. Like the first three matches, maybe they stand out a bit more because like they're players that have been around for a while. But yeah, the whole, as we already said, like the whole division is one big tight game, and I think that's that just the last two matches they might not be standing out as much, but definitely anything can happen there as well. And yeah, this is going to be a very interesting week again, especially given the map. Could be some draws, could be a few upsets. You never know.
All right, then let's look at that map. One location per city/town worldwide map. Just do us the honors and present your own map.
So it's not going to be your standard urban map. I was going to say it's heavily skewed towards small towns because every location, every city or town have only one location. So basically, yeah, if you're going to end up in New York, yeah, you're gonna have your one location. Like in some bigger towns or bigger cities, you do have also some subdivisions or some neighborhoods that have a location as well. But other than that, like just any location has one location within the town, and that's about it. And a lot of these are really small towns, and a lot of these are really in rural areas. So it's not going to be like the typical urban map that you would expect, and therefore it's also not very easy. It's still doable to have a 25k for sure, absolutely. But I've already had a few people coming into my DMs that they are telling me that they really like the map, but it's really harder than they expected it to be. But yeah, I do still expect some 25Ks, and but not as much as we are used to for normal urban maps.
Not like the Volvo dealerships last season,
No,
basically.
no.
Hopefully. Yeah, I can kind of agree with what you've said there. It can vary in difficulty a lot from location to location. It's still a kind of urban world map, so there's still going to be plenty of easier locations in there as well. But obviously, with, as you said, one location in every town/city, there's going to be plenty of rural locations. Also, purely based on the fact that some countries just have more towns/cities than other countries.
Yep.
There is some biases towards certain countries. Obviously, you're going to have quite a lot of locations in the US, for example, because there's a city everywhere or town everywhere. You might have less locations in somewhere in Russia, maybe, where there's still a lot of towns, but they're kind of more spread out, basically, is what I'm trying to say.
Yep.
So you
Also,
do.
sorry, yeah, go on.
I just wanted to say, you do notice that just some countries appear more often than others. So maybe if you practice the map enough, I don't know if it's going to help you anything, because you're still going to have to play those countries anyway. It's just a standard world map in that sense. But you might expect some countries more so than others.
True. And also, like the thing that what you can find already in this map is a lot of the new coverage, like in India, in Kenya, Senegal, like that kind of towns are also included in here, and also yeah, very small towns in, for instance, Indonesia or Thailand that are hardly to be found on the map. They might also be included. So, like when you end up in this kind of places, it's going to be very difficult to find them, and then yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah, of course the week has already started at this point, so I've created the seeds,
Yeah.
and I can say they're definitely interesting seeds. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing how the people do on those. And yeah, that will have been the Reddit League show for this week. I hope you all enjoyed watching. Thanks for doing so, and we'll see you guys again next time. Till then, bye.
Bye bye.